It's time to talk about Cad Bane again because this deck is insane. Hello and welcome to the table, and today I'm doing an updated Cad Bane Green deck list. I still believe this is the best Cad Bane deck, and I still believe this is the best control deck. The Master of Control, the King of the Underworld, Cad Bane. If you don't already know, Cad Bane is a yellow and black leader that says when you play an Underworld card, you can exhaust him and have an opponent choose one of their units to take a damage. And once you have 6 resources, he flips into a 2/8 raid 2, does the same thing, except it's 2 damage instead of just 1, and it's once per round instead of having to exhaust him. But Cad Bane, absolutely insane deck, absolutely love it. The damage adds up so much quicker than you would think, especially alongside Energy Conversion Lab, a 25 health green base with an epic action of allowing you to play any unit that costs 6 or less, give an ambush from your hand. Very, very, very powerful. Can add up that last couple of points you damage to need to kill the very powerful thing, or the thing that's going to allow your opponents to win the game, or the thing that's allowing you to not have the tempo, or disallowing you to have the tempo that you need to win the game. But yeah, very, very good base. And I absolutely love this deck. It has a pretty simple game plan for the most part, which is just play cards and get value, and it just so happens that that value is dealing a ton of damage. I mean, a lot of the deck is the same. There are quite a few upgrades to the deck since the last time that I've made it, some new tech. But a lot of the key cards are still here. The jugular cards like Salacious, Crumb, Klounkee, Bazine, Netal, just allowing you to get some early game tempo with Salacious, Crumb, just getting that repeatable 1 damage, 2 damage if you're doing it on ground units with Salacious Crumb every single turn, and gaining a life when you play Crumb. Klounkee just bouncing one of your units back to your hand, which is really, really good in this deck, dealing 3 damage to a unit, and it's an Underworld card itself, which can start the ball rolling for Cad Bane when you play it. And Bazine is a really good card just to play early to take the best thing in your opponent's hand, make it a little bit harder for them to get tempo on you early. In addition to that, later on in the game, when you play something like Xanadu Blood, it's just an absolutely insane lock. The opponent has to kill either Bazine or Xanadu Blood, and if they don't, they're just never going to have the best cards in their hand. And that is just the truth. And since the last time that I've made this list, I have added legendaries to the list. So Boba Fett's are really very powerful in this deck to allow you to control the mid game. Now there are 2 of them as a 2 of. I don't believe it needs to be a 3 of in this deck because it does primarily go pretty wide. But when you need that just really powerful advantage, now there are 2 of them, is a good ace in the hole in the deck to allow you to play something like a Zuckuss on turn 2. And speaking of Zuckuss, Forlom Zuckuss is still in the deck, still allowing you to get a ton of value in the deck. And then Gamorrean Guards kind of allowing you to take advantage of all the cunning units in your deck, so that it'll always be pretty much a 4-resource 4/4 Sentinel, just allow you to steal the tempo from the opponent, give you just enough time to kind of set up victory and the cards that you need for victory. And then getting to the later portions of the game, Overwhelming Barrage, just a really good way to, depending on what units you have out, just completely wipe the opponent's board away. It's really easy to do with this deck, especially with all the little instances of damage you're going to be doing early on in the game. And Cad Bane and Maul are the end game beaters. I mean, I've already talked about Xanadu Blood. That's a very good one too. But Cad Bane and Maul, for the ground arena side of things, they are the end game finishers. They are the things that allow you to just end the game. Maul is just another way to ambush. If you need that last thing of your opponent's killed before you can win the game, Maul is a great 2-of to allow you to do that. Plus it has Overwhelm, maybe that matters. And it might stick around and not have any damage on it because of his own on attack ability, basically sending all the damage that he would be dealt to one of your other Underworld units, one of your smaller ones, like a Salacious Crumb. And then Cad Bane, just an absolutely insane card. Again, with all the damage, it's likely that the opponent's stuff is going to have less life than they normally would, and that makes Cad Bane's, when played, that much more powerful, allowing you to take up to 3 even more powerful units than you otherwise would, and allowing you to get some more cards into your hand. Sure, one of your opponents might get some of their stuff back when you attack with Cad Bane, but you're getting cards if they do that. Otherwise, Cad Bane is just a permanent removal spell for potentially up to 3 of your opponent's units, which is absolutely insane, again. But there is some new stuff in this deck, like I've already talked about, so let's talk about those new cards. It's a lot of space stuff. A lot of the space cards in this deck are basically from the newest set and upgrades to make the deck a lot more powerful than it otherwise would be. Bazine Netal, or sorry, not Bazine Netal. I've already talked about Bazine Netal, but Zygerrian Starhopper, absolutely insane card in this deck. I absolutely love this 2-drop for a Cad Bane. Way better than any other 2-drop that Cad Bane has ever had access to, in my opinion. 2 resource, 2/3. When defeated, you deal 2 indirect damage to a player. I mean, you can get 1 damage out of this when you play it on the first turn. Then you can attack with it for 2. If it's into something that deals 3 damage to the Zygerrian Starhopper, boom, that's 2 more damage. Either to the opponent's base, or to a unit, or distribute it out between a unit and a base. I mean, it's just, no matter what, you're getting at least 5 points of value off of the Zygerrian Starhopper, which is insane for a 2-drop. I mean, for guaranteed damage, I mean, that's really, really good. In addition, there's contracted Jumpmaster, a new Sentinel space unit for the deck that I think is way better than any other option that this deck has ever had access to. It's a 3 resource 2/4 Sentinel, very simple. In addition, it is a cunning unit, which is very important, again, for something like a Gamorrean Guards, which cares about if you have another cunning unit, and this is just another cunning unit to make that much more likely for you to have a cunning unit out, to where you're not just playing a 4 resource 4/4 that does nothing. But then lastly, there is Hound's Tooth, which is another insane space unit in this deck. It's kind of like a space version of Boba Fett. While Boba Fett is a lot more powerful since it is a legendary versus a super rare, Hound's Tooth is still incredibly powerful and can allow you to manage the space arena very, very, very efficiently. 3 resource 4/3, and while it's attacking an exhausted unit that didn't enter play this phase, or round or whatever, then this basically gets first strike. It deals damage before the defender. It makes it so much harder for this thing to take damage and then die, which, I mean, who doesn't love that? Who does not love that? And then some other cool pieces of tech that I've added to the deck. I added 1 copy of Bounty Honey Crew, mostly for the fact that there's so many good events in this deck. You get to the point in the game, if you're going up against another control deck, that your graveyard kind of turns into a toolbox for the Bounty Hunter Crew. Just like, if you need a timely intervention, boom, likely going to be one of those in the graveyard. Klounkee, there you go. You need a Waylay, you need a No Good to Me Dead, you need a Now There Are 2 of Them, Overwhelming Barrage. Literally any event in your deck might be in the graveyard to allow you to get back with Bounty Hunter Crew, plus it's a 4/4 ambush, so it could be a potential removal spell in and of itself. And something else that I do want to point out that is a really powerful combo, potentially, with Bounty Hunter Crew, if you play the Bounty Hunter Crew, it's a 4 resource, or it's a 6 resource 4/4 ambush. So that's 4 damage. With Cad Bane, if it's not flipped, it's 1 more damage. If it is flipped, then that's 2 more damage. And then, if you have 1 more resource left over and you return something like a Klounkee, you can play a Klounkee, bounce the Bounty Hunter Crew back to your hand, deal 3 more damage to a unit, and then the next turn, you play the Bounty Hunter Crew again, get 4 more damage if it sticks around. Obviously, you're getting the value off of Cad Bane, but if it sticks around and you return the Klounkee again, then you can bounce the Bounty Hunter Crew back to your hand with the Klounkee, deal 3 more damage again, and you just do that cycle, which that can be a scary lock in and of itself as well. But then lastly, I have 1 copy of Bamboozle. Technically is out of aspects. It is a yellow and white card from the first set, but you can discard a cunning card from your hand rather than pay this card's costs, which is another reason to have another lot of cunning cards in this deck. But it says exhaust the unit and return each upgrade, not non-leader, each upgrade to its owner's hands. So it just defeats any upgrades on, like, leader upgrades on an opposing unit, and any other pilots on it, back to the hand, or any other kind of upgrade back to the hand. I mean, Bamboozle is just like a silver bullet against the right deck, so you need this as a one-of in a deck like Cad Bane, in a control-y style deck that just kind of loses to decks that do stuff like that, and Bamboozle is just so good against that. But this is the best version of the deck. This is the best version of the deck that I've been talking about. There are more budget-friendly versions of the deck. Cad Bane is a very, very powerful card in this deck, but if you don't want Cad Bane, then something that you might want to think about is taking out the Cad Banes and playing the Knight version of the deck, which puts in another copy of Maul, up to 3 copies of Maul, and it puts in 2 copies of Bosk, allowing you to take that much more advantage of all of the events that are in your deck. in addition to being a very powerful end game or mid game to end game kind of stabilizer, since every time you play one of those events, you're dealing 2 more damage, allowing you to kill some of your opponent's units that much more efficiently. It does a similar job to Cad Bane. It's not the best, but it is still very good at what it does, which I played with Bosk and Cad Bane forever in set 3, and Bosk was really good for me. The Bosk worked a lot of the time for me. It's not as good as Cad Bane, obviously, but it does do its job very, very well. But if you want an even cheaper version of the deck, the only other expensive cards that I would say you could take out are Boba Fett, and now there are 2 of them. And the way that I would do that is by playing the Padawan version of the deck, which takes out those cards, puts in 1 more copy of Waylay, 1 more copy of No Good To Me Dead. Very good interacty events that allow you to still take as much advantage of Bosk as you would in the previous versions of the deck, or in the previous version of the deck, and just, again, get some good tempo and value off of those. In addition, even though that Boba Fett is a very powerful unit, ground unit, you do have a lot of ground units that can allow you to kind of stabilize the ground arena. So I would focus more to the space arena for this version of the deck, and Fett's Fire Spray is really good at doing that. It's a 4-resource 4/4. When played on attack, you get to deal 1 indirect damage to a player. There isn't a Boba Fett leader unit or upgrade in this deck, so it's just going to be 1 indirect damage, but it's still very good at what it does. It's not as good as Boba Fett, obviously, but it's kind of like another copy of Houndstooth, which is very powerful, but that's the deck. If you want the most inexpensive version of the deck that does still compete, I've played versions of this deck, obviously not with the newest cards, but I've played versions of this deck in the past, and it's done very well for me. If you want a more more kind of mid-game approach, or mid-budget approach to the deck, then the Knight version is very, very good, allowing you to have some of the very powerful cards in Cad Bane, but not the best. But if you want the absolute best version that I've had the most success with, and have been doing the best with, and might even take to a sector qualifier, then the Master version of the deck is the best option for you. This deck is incredibly powerful. It does its job super well, and it's just an overall incredible deck. And that's it. I love Cad Bane. I love these decks. I cannot wait to talk about more videos and more decks coming out and being more powerful with Jump to Lightspeed. So with all that aside, make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button if you want to see more videos like this, and have a great rest of your day, everybody. Enjoy.